Hello and welcome to another update video for Archaeology Rush. This is the update video for the 17th of September. This would have normally been a playtest, but we made a pretty big change over the last couple of weeks. That means that single player is now no longer included. I didn't get my act together to find somebody to play it with because I have had a busy week. But anyway, so we're just going to go over what I have done on the game in the last week since I last recorded a video. The first thing is I just want to talk just generally. I've updated the game over to Godot version 4.5. I think it's 4.5. Yeah. Just ported it over just to see how that would work. So that's all done. And it's fixed a couple of bugs, which is nice. I know the title of this video is that I'm finally adding in back an old feature, but I think we need to get a little bit of a sort of narrative about how we got there. So I'm going to talk about some other changes first. Really irritatingly, I'm going to talk about some of the other things that I've done, and then we'll finish off with the new thing that I've done and what I needed to do from a technical level to get that working. So I've got the newspaper up for a reason, and then that is because we have added in two new newspapers. The first of all is the Explored newspaper. So this is just saying that the Tribute Keeper's Tomb explored. Actually, this is the second one. This is the completed newspaper. But you also notice that I added in some different just characters. Basically, there's still text here. But I just want it to look like real text. I think I've still got a little bit of stuff to kind of do and make this look right, but I like the direction it's heading. Yes, so what we're currently looking at is the newspaper for if a tomb is completed. We get the tomb name and the fact that it's been explored, and then we get the person who completed it, and Henry Pepper discovers even more gold to add to their collection. New images of the newly discovered Tribute Keeper's tomb on page 3. I just like the idea of just having another newspaper, and if we jump over to walk away, that goes away, and then if we dig up this tomb, it's a tax collector's tomb. You'll notice we get a new newspaper. Tax collector's tomb discovered. Henry Pepper is excited to liberate artifacts. Be prepared for sacred relics soon to be available for private collectors to, quote, truly appreciate them. Now, if you haven't seen any of the other videos or haven't sort of seen the previous 50-odd videos where I've talked about some of this, Archaeology Rush is a game where you are essentially trying to be the best archaeologist, and the best archaeologist is the one who steals the most artifacts. Of course, obviously, stealing artifacts from cultural artifacts from other countries is a bad thing, and this game is sort of playful attempt to satirize some of that. And sort of pit players against each other in satirizing that. So I want to just jump over to the editor and talk a little bit about the custom data system that I wrote. So if we load up the proper level, you'll see not that one, this one. This is the discovered tomb found. And so essentially we've got these tags: tomb name, discoverer, and you'll notice that the date and location is not set. So this is kind of a problem that we had where essentially we don't have a date system, and I don't want to write stuff a date system. A lot of this thinking at the moment is how can we get the scope as low as possible. So we needed to do something for that as well. So if we jump over to the code side where this is actually found, and we'll open up this thing called the diggable location. Now this is the diggable tombs, and when we uncover a tomb, we call in to the desk manager, and then we essentially call set newspaper, and we call it on tomb found and pass in the custom data. And the exciting thing and kind of annoying thing is that we essentially this all kind of passed on over to the desk manager, but if the desk manager doesn't exist, it's kind of a problem. And so for this, where we're on the map, the desk manager exists, so that's perfectly fine. And so we just find the discoverer name, and then we get the location of whoever's uncovering it, and we just pass in for the date, special edition. And then the tomb name is, of course, the tomb name of the tomb. That's nice and easy. We jump over to the game manager. We have to do something a little bit funky, and I didn't like this. So here, in this little bit of code here, when the desk manager is re-registered, we say, and this is the end round function, we essentially gather all that data and pass in the tomb completed one. Same with special edition and location. So if we override the date and location, that's fine. But we do this when we wait for this desk manager to be registered, so that when we come back into the map from the end game screen, we pass all of that data over, which works. I mean, it clearly works, but it's not good. I don't think I like having kind of this specialized code just in here. So yeah. Anyway, like sometimes just getting something working is the most important thing. So I accepted that and decided, right, let's just leave it at that. And then I jumped in and I was like, right, what's next on the list? I've got a big list of things that I want to improve. And one of the things, and this is the feature that I'm adding back, if you remember from the old game, there was a leaderboard. And that leaderboard was just basically the amount of tombs that, like the score from collective tombs. That's from the demo that you can play on Steam now, which is great. But I kind of felt like it didn't necessarily entirely represent what I wanted. So now, in the newspaper was a perfect example of me to put in the latest archeologist power rankings. As if this was sort of the archaeologist times like best collection. And so their collection is rated for like how much it costs. That's kind of what I could think of. And so what happens is each player has a different amount. Although not every player is listed on here. As I wanted this also to be a narrative device. So you've got Henry Pepper listed here, you've got this mysterious Setco, you've got Amelia and John Roberts here, and Lily Petrie. But, so yeah, all the characters are actually on here. But as this will change, and it changes by completing levels and collecting treasures. It also changes by the narrative. There are narrative beats where this changes. Now you think, oh, it's easy, right? I have a leaderboard and I've got treasures at the end. I just need to pass off to the end. The problem is that I could do this and have this massive wait for global to be registered desk manager. But I kind of hate that, right? So I was in, and it was, I think, about 11 o'clock at night. I just finished doing a load of fixes for my work at the moment, which is a AAA game, and I have an event coming up quite soon, which is why I'm probably not making changes at quite the pace that I want to on this. And I was like, you know what? I just want to make a logger. I was finding logging being a pain. And so I was like, great, I spent a lot of time in Unreal Engine, and I wanted just a way to log where the code was coming from and severity. So if we jump over to the game now, you'll notice that in this log window, I needed to be able to put more log messages up, but you can see like this from the input manager to log, and this from the Steam manager and log, and this from the music player and the pop-up manager, wherever I want to log stuff. So now, Godot has the ability to log, and it's got a pretty alright basic logger, and it's these three functions here: print, push warning, push error. That's fine. But because I wanted the ident and the severity, I wanted to put on my own logger itself. So I basically made this logger here, which is a global class, and I've got this in my utilities add-on, so I can take this over to any other game that I make, and essentially created static functions just as a print, and it's just an interface between the two. And there's two of these: one for if you just get a string through, or one for if you've got an object, like a list of objects. And just made a load of static classes. And what this does is it takes in the object, and goes to else static, right? It just gets the type. Just gets the type of the object and prints that out for me. That's the lovely thing about C#. If I want to change this or I don't like it for a certain way, then fine. We also have a version where you can pass in the type, and that is useful for generally just useful if for whatever reason you don't have an object. In most cases you have an object, so that's fine. But if you want to pass in a separate type or something funky, you can just pass that in there. And what this looks like is, if we find where this is commonly used, so we've got this logger extensions class, and that is a formal extension, but then we've also got the actual main logger thing, so that this can be called kind of more manually. If we jump over to a usage, so let's jump into our use in the Steam manager. It just means anywhere I can call this.log and then the log message. It's nice and easy. Yeah, so that was kind of my mad 11 o'clock. I just want to make this is winding me up kind of thing. And then I got a bit of a beam up on it and decided that I wanted to make another thing. And I wanted to get rid of this problem right here, this wait for globals to be registered. It works, it does the job, but as you can see in this function, I have hit this problem multiple times. This time in the letter manager, which isn't used anymore, I decided that I wanted to make a separate global class, and I can't be doing that for every single one, and it's got lots of disparate pieces of code, and it just didn't sit right. So I made an event bus. So I'll just talk about the usage. I won't go into the actual implementation details. But we have the bus fire event, and we've taken a new event, and I might make this a little bit easier to do so we can skip this little bit. It's a work in progress. We take in the event name, and then we take in any parameters. Right, so in this case, we just want to pass in the character and pass in all the treasures they got for this level. Now, you think, why does a simple event bus have solved this solution? Surely I have the same solution. This event's fired and then forgotten about. However, of course, I wrote the bus to think about this. So if we just search where this is used elsewhere, you'll notice that it is used in the desk manager. And in the desk manager, in the ready function, we say, right, on the bus, register global and the desk manager. So effectively what this is doing is it is saying, right, register this list event registration as as an event registration, and there's only going to be one of me, like desk manager, so that's fine. You can just come find me whenever you have it. And then I just want to listen to this event and listen to this leaderboard updated. Now, in the bus, essentially, I will go into code because it actually explains what's going on. We create this thing called event registration global, callable global. And so there are ones that we sort of fire and forget, and that's fine. So when a node isn't valid, we don't want it. That's cool. But in this case, we just say, hey, look, this is always going to be valid. Don't clear this callable. When the node, when the node is no longer livable, then don't clear it. And when we call it, it literally is just a wait for object to be registered, and then calls it. There's a couple of things to check about the call, like just make sure that we haven't hit an invalid call error, and if we do, we want to give a little bit more information because of a weird try-catch error issue. And the same here, we've got a similar thing which is not for event globals in that way. So let's say we have an object that we know doesn't exist, but we know will exist at some point. That's fine. We essentially go. And when we call it, we essentially listen to an object and we hold on to a list of transient objects. So when we register a transient inside of our bus, so we'll register transient, it's called an internal function because it's a static class. We go event registrations and then we register a transient here, and we have this array where we essentially, whenever this transient is kind of listened to, right? So we have essentially a point where we tell in that ready function, we have to tell it, hey, I'm alive now. And so that's where we connect the node to the ID. And then we can perform on anything that we need to perform on. So let's say an event gets fired, essentially calls into the callable, like the transient, right? If for whatever reason we can't call it, right? So this still only assumes there's only ever one of these nodes, but we call into fetch our transient object, and then if that transient object doesn't exist at the moment, we just enqueue it into a list. So this is just, hey, we're going to call this method with these parameters, and then whenever we hear about that thing in this perform, or if it already exists, then we're going to actually call it properly and call the method on the function. So I appreciate it's probably not the clearest thing, But in terms of functionality, what that means is that this event can be fired here, and then we wait for the event later. And when the desk manager turns up, and we have no concept of the desk manager, we're just firing an event out here. We listen to it, and we listen to this function, and we update the register, and then whenever we generate a newspaper, we'll take the latest leaderboard and render that. So, yeah. Anyway, hopefully, I'm actually really excited because I think over the next week I'm going to push to get another playtest done and recorded, and then I'll narrate over that and then talk through what that looks like. And that'll, of course, be on the latest build. But yeah, thank you for watching. Please let me know if you kind of enjoy me going through into the technical stuff a little bit more. Probably not the greatest at explaining it. Believe it or not, code written at 11 o'clock at night is sort of never really the best. And trying to explain your thoughts from 11 o'clock at night isn't always the greatest either. But that's the fun of doing it. Remember, you can get the latest version on itch.io. You can get the first demo on Steam. Please tell me what you think. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear what you think. Yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good week. Bye.